Good morning and good evening to CEO Tim Harrison in the UK at the moment. I'd like to welcome you all to this webinar for Ionic Rare Earths, where Tim is going to run through some of the details around the DFS announcement that was made this week pertaining to the Makuutu Rare Earths project. I'm going to hand it over to Tim now, and we'll have a few questions at the end of this session. So over to you, Tim.
Thanks, Peter, and welcome everyone, and greetings from Belfast. Taking the opportunity to step through our Stage 1 DFS at Makuutu, which we announced earlier this week. We're excited about the opportunity and looking at how we can now progress Makuutu towards a final investment decision later this year. Just our disclaimer, and covering off on the main I suppose metrics on the feasibility study that we announced on Monday. The feasibility study will support the mining license application, which we're working on for the central Makuutu license over retention license 1693. This feasibility study, or the DFS that's been defined, as a 35-year life initial starter project. With some quite robust some numbers around the first phase of this development. With an initial capital of $120.8 million US. We're able to define a 35-year life of mine project, generating a considerable amount of EBITDA, $1.6 billion. Post-tax, a free cash flow of about $1 billion US over the 35 years. We've reported there the NPV pre-tax of using a discount rate of 8% of 406 million. We're still in negotiation discussion with the Ugandan government around the fiscal terms on the development of the project, and an internal rate of return of 32.7%. The intent is to develop the project in a staged approach, or the approach that we've worked on with the feasibility study. A staged approach, the initial development being a 5 million tonne per annum 2-module scenario, which runs out over a 35-year life of mine. The product that we're producing is a 71% magnet plus heavy rare earth REO content MREC, so a mixed rare earth carbonate product. We've defined a maiden ore reserve estimate for Makuutu of 172.9 million tonnes at 848 ppm TREO. And the plan is to work through a development phase this year with a demonstration plant at Makuutu to support the final investment decision later in 2023, with a view to moving into construction next year. And given the type of operation, the process, the ability to work towards first MREC production targeted for the end of 2024. And beyond the study that we've announced, we are looking at the stage development. We've got an additional 5 tenements, and they will progress towards mining license applications with additional drilling and additional development programs that will be conducted over each of the tenements over the years to come. If we touch upon, I suppose, the individual aspects of the unique opportunity with Makuutu, it's a staged development approach with an initial capital outlay, which enables us to grow the development in time and responsive to what we anticipate is going to be much higher rare earth pricing in the future. We've defined a much larger resource at Makuutu, and with the MLA focused only on the initial license, the rationale for that is really around the central license is the license that has the most work that's done that can support the feasibility study. The other 5 tenements, the next tenement that would progress to a mining license application is RL00007, which is the Makuutu Western license. And progressively, these other licenses will advance towards the mining license once we've defined the resource and done enough metallurgical test work to support the modifying factors that would underpin those tenements progressing towards their individual mining license applications. So we're focusing in on ML or the ML over retention license 1693. RL 1693 has an indicated resource base presently of 259 million tonnes at 740 parts per million. And so that's the focus of the study. We are at 51% of the Makuutu project as Ionic Rare Earths. On the back of this feasibility study, we'll be in a position to move to 60%. And so we're working on that. And in addition to that, obviously, there's several discussions underway at the moment around our ability and discussions with our partners about moving towards an increased stake in the project. If we look at the appetite for the product, the project, we have got a very unique product, being a medium yttrium, high europium asset. So the product classification that we would produce from a Makuutu, there's only a handful of refineries that exist in the world today that can separate and refine our product. Those facilities are all in China. And so we have been looking at ways in which we can go downstream and develop that capability external to China. Part of our approach in setting the metrics on the project is around being able to place our product into the supply chain ex-China. And so there's several discussions that we have underway at the moment. We feel that 2 modules producing between 1,400-1,500 tonnes per annum of MREC is material that we can place in the market from 2025 onwards. We have, some very positive discussions underway at the moment. There is no Western refinery in construction today, but we anticipate that over the next 6 to 9 months that will change. And so we're advancing those discussions with a view to being able to place our product into those facilities and being able to monetize the product from Makuutu. If we look at the infrastructure at Makuutu, it's already there. So we've got, highway and road and rail access immediately available to the project. We benefit from the fact that we've got high voltage, low cost hydroelectric power immediately accessible to the project site and communications across site. And beyond the Makuutu Central license that we're progressing the mining license application on, those 5 other licenses themselves will support further growth. And so we're looking at also mobilising drilling and being able to progress some of those licenses with some more targeted drilling later this year to support those continued development of the other 5 tenements. Just recapping on the location, so we're 120 kilometres east of Kampala and approximately 1,000 kilometres via Nairobi out to the port of Mombasa, where the product will be exported. The resource itself, and looking at the overall 6 tenements at Makuutu, so that the central license is highlighted in red in the central area. 37 kilometre long mineralisation trend. 2 other licenses have indicated resources. The next license that will progress towards a mining license is RL00007 to the west, and that's dictated by the time period on which we have to move that one to a mining license. We have a little bit more time on RL0234, and the most eastern tenement and the new northwestern tenement are both its exploration license. So beyond the time frame we've got in excess of 6 years for both of those licenses to progress. So still substantial amount of work to be done on those tenements themselves to be able to support mining license applications. But we've certainly got more than enough with what we think at the Makuutu Central license to get started and get Makuutu into production. Recapping on the resource itself within the Makuutu Central zone, that Makuutu Central license itself is 259 million tonnes of indicated resource, 700 parts per million total rare earths. And with regards to the Central license itself and the ability to underpin a feasibility study, we have to use indicated resources in order to underpin an ore reserve estimate, and henceforth the focus of the Central license for this application. The process flow sheet. So beyond the work that we've done previously, we've done additional test work on heap desorption. We've done a lot more bottle rolls. We've done heap leach columns. We've looked at the scale up of the process to support the overall project. At the moment, the feasibility study is based upon a 3-metre stack height on the heap leach or the heap desorption arrangement. We have been successful in being able to demonstrate the potential to stack the material higher. However, in order to be able to support moving forward with that, we believe a demonstration plant will be required. We know that Chinese operations, for over 40 years have used heap leaching for the processing of ionic adsorption clays. So we're confident that the technology can be used. That those Chinese operations have operated with a 3-metre stack height, so it's a proven, demonstrated application. However, we think that with some tweaks, we're able to increase the stack height at Makuutu and drive better capital efficiency. However, the feasibility study itself, we're using the proven 3-metre stack height, and with that process, using a pH, nominal pH of around pH 2, using ammonium sulfate, we're able to desorb the rare earths from the clay, and the resultant basket composition that we achieve is shown on the right. So we end up with a basket composition that's roughly about 71% magnet plus heavy rare earths. So we maintain a very good spread of heavy rare earths that will underpin, several discussions that we're working on now to provide an alternative source of secure and sustainable heavy magnet and heavy rare earths into Western supply chains. If we look at the work program that the company has executed over the last 3.5 years since acquiring the interest in Makuutu in roughly August 2019, in a short space of time, we've defined a lot of resource at Makuutu. We've expanded the overall tenements that we have at the project site, delineated a very large resource and expanded that to underpin this maiden ore reserve estimate that we've announced, plus the definitive feasibility study to support the mining license application. That mining license application process that we have underway at the moment, we commenced that on the 1st of September in 2022. All of the documentation now is sitting within Uganda. We're finalising the application in consultation right now with our key contacts at the DGSM and the Ugandan government. Some of the challenges that we're working with at the moment relate to some of the administrative requirements in finalising that application. And so we're in constant contact with the DGSM in Uganda to finalise the application. But from a required documentation submitting process. This is the final piece of documentation that needs to support that. So, we're looking for confirmation on the overall program and timing on the completion of the mining license application in Uganda. And as soon as we have positive confirmation, we'll be in a position to provide an update to the market. Beyond the finalisation of the mining license application, as mentioned previously, we plan to move to a demonstration plant at Makuutu. That demonstration plant is going to be critical for the company to de-risk the project, producing adequate volumes of mixed rare earth carbonate product to be able to progress several discussions on downstream value addition and the potential offtake and supply chain partnerships that we've undertaken. And so with the demonstration and a positive outcome of the demonstration plant, in addition to project financing discussions which are underway at the moment, we anticipate being in a position to progress the Makuutu final investment decision later this year. The company's got several discussions underway at the moment with a number of diverse groups in appetite and getting exposure to the product that's likely to come from Makuutu, and with that product, the ability to support manufacturing in Western governments. So, we're quite excited by the opportunity to bring Makuutu into production, and what that may mean for the company going forward. And so with those discussions underway, we're aiming to progress those discussions. We are looking to formalise that process as per the announcement. We're looking at formalising the process and running a structured process of engagement to zero in on preferred parties to support the overall timeline for the development of Makuutu. So touching upon where we're at across the three separate divisions of Ionic Rare Earths, with the Makuutu Rare Earths project, we've defined a project that can produce magnet and heavy rare earths at Makuutu, and with that mining license application hopefully being finalised in the very short term, we now expect that the mining license will be awarded in the second quarter of this year. We're finalising now the scoping study on the refinery scoping study. We've got several discussions underway at the moment, and I suppose the outcomes of those studies is providing the company with a lot of quite strategic information, which provides us with a real competitive advantage in understanding the opportunity with our basket. And so we're working through that, and hoping to be able to close out that scoping study in a very, very short term, and being able to provide some colour on that to the market. And beyond that, as I mentioned earlier, I'm here in Belfast at the moment, where a lot of progress has been made with the company and Ionic Technologies in progressing their magnet recycling demonstration plant, with equipment arriving to site here, and new additions to the team. We're getting very, very close now to being able to start commissioning and delivering on the plan to produce oxides here by the middle of 2023. So with that, I'll wrap it up and open it up now to questions.
Thank you, Tim. That was fairly comprehensive, and you did answer many of the questions in general form that we'd been getting through. I'm going to summarise some of them here and ask some other individual ones, but I'll start with the demonstration plant. How large is it going to be? What is the timeline on its construction, and what sort of cost is that going to incur?
So we've got several phases within the demonstration plant itself, Peter. So the initial phase is the development of 6 metre heap leach columns and 6 metre heap leach cribs. So we've placed initial orders on equipment. We're building a shed or a facility now that will be able to house not only the heap leach columns, but the analytical lab and additional metallurgical test work. The second phase of the demonstration plant is to develop 5,000 tonne heap leach modules. So considerable scale up. We anticipate that through the second quarter, we'll complete the construction of the heap leach columns and cribs to be able to commence that test work with the heap leach column, the 5,000 tonne heap leach modules starting later in this year. As far as overall cost, we've been looking at the cost and looking at a stage development with regards to the demonstration plant, and with regards to, I suppose, the current climate, where we are looking at how we can maximise value as we develop Makuutu.
And Tim, flowing on from that, the flow sheet which you discussed earlier in some detail, given the long-term production that China's had in ionic clay-based rare earth production, are we talking sort of off-the-shelf technology? Is there anything new here that we're looking to, where technology has changed in recent times to make it more efficient?
Yeah, look, so we've been tweaking the overall process flow sheet and incorporating some new intellectual property, which puts us in quite a strong position to probably push the boundaries on what we can do with regards to product quality, and also trade-offs on what that looks like relative to our product going into a third-party refinery as opposed to our own refinery. So we've incorporated nanofiltration as a mechanism to upgrade the PLS solution, which feeds the downstream impurity precip and ultimately the rare earth precipitation. Beyond that, yes, the company's been developing some other intellectual property, and we're not in a position to talk about that publicly. But there's a substantial amount of test work that's gone into the overall flow sheet to this point in time. We still believe there's lots of opportunity to further enhance the overall flow sheet. But the reality is, in order to validate that process, we really have to start looking at treating larger volumes of liquor and material. The only way, or the best way for that to happen, is via a demonstration plant. And so beyond what we've defined in the existing feasibility study, we do see opportunities to further enhance that.
And that probably leads me into this next question about the interest for the product and the basket that you'll be producing. What sort of it's difficult to talk about as well because it's probably confidential, but in broad terms, the interest ex-China in what you're putting together and the basket you're looking to achieve from Makuutu.
Yeah, look, very, very diverse groups. So, there's several groups that we're talking with at the moment across, existing, mining experience to, industrial groups that are looking at rare earths as an opportunity to get, I suppose, potentially to grow into or to fill a need. As you said, Peter, we're not in a position to talk publicly about it, but there's several discussions underway where Makuutu provides the molecules of heavy rare earth to underpin a heavy rare earth facility. So we're in a very unique position. A lot of the light rare earth projects in development today simply do not have the molecules to underpin those heavy rare earth developments. So we're in a very unique position. Lots of discussion, lots of education, and it is quite an exciting time for the company now that we've completed the feasibility study. We're able to progress some of those discussions. Moving to 60% very shortly will be, again, a step towards, helping de-risk that process with some of these groups. And we'll be in a position to update the market in due course.
Thanks, Tim. Several questions came through about the basket price described in the DFS versus today's comparative basket price. Can you comment on the differences there, what the outlook is for that basket price, and if the potential offtakes will play some consideration in future financing?
Okay, so basket price is always an interesting one. I think if you look at all rare earth projects that have completed any feasibility study, they're always looking at forecast pricing. The reality is, forecast pricing is an incentive price to develop these projects. If we look at where rare earth pricing is today relative to a handful of other projects that are being evaluated, we are using consistent pricing with all of those projects. The differentiating, opportunity for us is, and our basket is, that we are not just an NdPr story. We are a magnet and heavy rare earth story, which means that we have a lot of upside on forecast pricing with regards to the fact that Western end users will not have access to heavy rare earths ex-China going forward. So we are in a situation where it's a very iterative process with regards to what does rare earth pricing look like. Current rare earth pricing is effectively Chinese index pricing. Discussions that we have underway, again, not sort of giving away too much confidential information, but there is a desire or an appetite to move away from Chinese index pricing to a pricing structure that does reflect a sustainability approach to be able to ethically and sustainably produce these elements that are now classified, and I suppose more importantly under the recent European Critical Raw Materials Act, strategic raw materials. Pricing is something that will continue to evolve, and I think Ionic and Makuutu is best placed to be a major beneficiary of those increased pricing discussions that fall out of that.
And Tim, Uganda, you've always said that you've got a very good relationship with the relative government bodies that you're talking to, the community that you're working with. I know you've got a number of people on the ground that are regularly engaged. Can you give us an update, I guess, because you have been discussing that in the past, about how community engagement is and your relationship there with the Makuutu government, the Ugandan government for Makuutu's progress?
Okay, so with regards to the relationship with the Ugandan government, the Ugandan DGSM and the Busoga Kingdom, we maintain extremely good relationships. And we are in constant dialogue with our key contacts at the DGSM. We are working with several stakeholders there to make sure that the information is being provided and clarified, and with regards to the mining license application, as I mentioned earlier, we started that process in September of last year. We've provided draft documentation and ongoing updates to be able to progress the mining license application. We are working with our partners in Uganda, and our partners being, several stakeholders, being both, and most importantly, the government in Uganda and the DGSM, in better understanding some of the processes and the timelines that they are working in internally in Uganda to help us finalise the mining licence application. And we've requested some information, and as soon as we've got relevant information to report back to the market, we'll be in a position to do so. We do, and whilst we would have loved to have the mining licence delivered by the end of the quarter, I suppose given some of the challenges and delays that we've had in finalising the application, finalising the mining licence application fee process, and some of the other administrative activities in Uganda, we do have, and we have had some dialogue back, which at this stage we feel confident in our expectation that we expect the mining licence to be awarded in the second quarter of this year. Uganda has awarded Makuutu a flagship project status, and so a lot of the dialogue has been very strong support in the development of Makuutu to help develop the mining industry in Uganda. So we remain very bullish on our expectations there with regards to the outcome of the mining licence application process.
And I think you've said to me in the past, there's a lot of locals who are looking forward to gaining apprenticeships and work nearby to their where they live.
That's right. I mean, we've got a team of 50 at the moment working on Makuutu as part of the project team in Uganda. We are looking at obviously increasing that with the demonstration plant. We continue to support ongoing capacity building in Uganda, and really looking at our ability to participate and develop and build the overall capacity of the local area to support this project. So whilst we wait for that mining licence to be awarded, we are looking at how we can sort of progress the project through the demonstration plant, building capacity, and these are going to be the operators and operational leaders for the project going forward. So we are investing heavily in Uganda right now, and will continue to do so.
There's a couple of questions about the share price, which we often get in these types of calls. Ionic is currently showing a share market graph, which I see often in the market after discovery and value discovery and preparation leading into development and construction. There's always a dip. Look at companies like Pilbara, Syra, some of the big success stories. They've all had quite significant dips. Your cash balance at the moment is pretty healthy. Obviously, there's going to be some financing of this project down the track. What's your time frame on that, and what type of arrangement do you foresee being finalised?
So with regards to the overall financing of Makuutu, as I touched on in the presentation, we've started the debt advisory and engaging with debt advisory and financing opportunities for the project. We've got several discussions underway at the moment with regard to the strategic partnering process and what that may look like with regards to opportunity to participate in the project. So there's several opportunities for the company to explore. Again, it comes back to what do we think represents the best value for Ionic, the best value for our shareholders. With regards to financing the project, and I suppose our current 51%, which is going to move to 60% ownership in Makuutu. We're also in discussions with our partners on the other 40%. So looking at how we can simplify the overall funding process for Makuutu over the course of the next few months. So there's several discussions again that are underway here in how we develop Makuutu. I mean, at the end of the day, we have an extremely strategic project producing the elements, the molecules of both magnet and heavy rare earths that Western governments are crying out for. So I think we've got huge optionality in how we look at funding Makuutu. We're in an environment where we already have both the US government and the EU actively investing money in Uganda to, prioritize spending in that jurisdiction. I think we're in a great position to leverage those relationships to be able to develop Makuutu and to get access to those molecules into those Western supply chains that, those governments are, they've set up the Inflation Reduction Act. They've set up the European Critical Raw Materials Act for getting access to the molecules, which this project affords them the opportunity to. So I think we're in a very strong position. There's still a bit of work to be done, but where we benefit is that the fact that we actually have those molecules, which a lot of companies and certainly a lot of countries don't have to begin with.
Certainly, Tim, I think Ionic Rare Earths is well positioned at the start of one of the greatest changes in industry we've seen in 100 years in terms of the energy transmission and EV evolution or revolution that we're seeing. And you're certainly one of the very few projects of scale that's getting set up now to supply that market with a high quality product. So I think shareholders should be comfortable that they've got the right investment here. And if we're patient and go through the development stage into production stage, this company will look very, very different in a couple of years from now. So I've had quite a number of questions. Some are technical around engineering and design. Please send those technical questions through and they'll be forwarded on to Tim. In the meantime, I'd like to wish Tim all the best over there in Belfast and hope your work there is going well. And thank you for presenting here today a good and comprehensive update on where Ionic Rare Earths is sitting.
Thanks, Peter.